Hey Carrie, how you doing?
How are you?
Hmm. Hey Cole, how's it going?
Good, Steven. How are you? I'm off video. I'm just still cooking dinner and stuff because it's that kind of Thursday. How you doing?
No worries at all. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Hey Andrew.
So can I have a headphone?
Hey there.
How's it going?
Good. Moses, no.
I want to see. I'm proud. Haha.
Let's give it a couple more minutes.
Steven, I appreciate you pushing back on the captain last night or 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago. Tired of seeing all those claims just trumpeted out over and over again.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was really when she said it the first time, I almost let it slide just because I wasn't completely sure if like their budget actually was cut. So I looked it up and then just kind of set it aside. And then she made that claim a second time, and that's when I just said, no. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, they've been pretty lockstep in speaking points or talking points. Like I have a friend who works for Allen, and it's like every time we go to a meeting, it's the same. And it's been going on like that for almost 2 years now. Every time they go to a meeting, it's just same old, same old. So
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing this in police departments all across the country. They just refuse to do their jobs, and they're like, "Oh, defunding," even though they have more money than ever.
yeah, exactly.
All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for coming on the video. So we have a new member who has not shown up yet. I need to ask Sidel about that because she hasn't answered any of my emails. So we'll see where that goes. Bladensburg, I guess I'm still just keeping an eye out for it. Somebody asked about it at the ANC meeting on Tuesday because DDOT said February, but it's still February. So just I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they release the project and the website in the next couple of weeks or so.
Just a note, the guy who asked about it, John Healy, I believe, he doesn't live in our ANC. He's over by Arboretum. And he's like super gung ho about bike lanes on Bladensburg. He's like reached out to me offline several times. He put up a poll on Nextdoor like a year ago that got like hundreds of responses. So anyway, he's, just so you know, he'll probably like ask about it at any opportunity.
Yeah. It's funny because I vaguely recognized his name, but I didn't realize until just now I know him from that Nextdoor poll that just blew up, and it crops back up again every now and then. Huh. Okay, cool. All right, Benning Road. The public comment period is still open, and I wanted to speak about this last month, but it didn't really work out. So I just want to see what y'all think about the proposal for Benning Road from
Strawberry cones.
the extension of the streetcar and the bike lane.
Strawberry jam. Quickberry, quackberry.
Do you know the end date of the comment period?
No, not at the top of my head.
Andrew, do you mind muting? I don't know if that's coming from you. I'm just hearing talking in the background. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I took some notes. I'm looking at them now.
So, I mean, on the project itself, I think it's worth saying that the streetcar should get a dedicated lane, and the bike facilities could be improved. I guess that last stretch heading east, that's pretty far away from our ANC, but nonetheless is important. Like the way they described it was really unclear. They kept saying, oh no, there are bike facilities the whole way. I don't know if this happened in whichever meeting you attended, but they were then in the drawings, they called it just a sidewalk.
Yeah,
It wasn't, they didn't even call it a multi-use trail. It's like a 8-foot sidewalk, which is not the bike lane.
right. I remember that. That came up a couple times where they said, yeah, look, there's a bike lane and it's clearly just a sidewalk. Why are you gaslighting us like this? It's right there. Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed another thing is they're not going to give the streetcar any sort of signal priority. That could be an improvement.
Yeah, it's weird because the whole corridor is identified as a transit priority corridor in Move DC, and that extends down H Street as well, on the Benning and H on the existing streetcar route. So I'm not sure what kind of priority they're ever going to do. They don't do the stuff when they're fully rebuilding the road. I did talk to someone at DDOT who kind of was like, trying to do that right now could kill the project. So like they're being really careful not to like overreach, but the fact that they're doing a median running means it doesn't foreclose on giving it its own right of way in the future. So I mean, there's might be some strategy at play here, but I don't know.
So it's an adjustment that they could, I mean, I guess they could just pre-program some signals, or is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could paint a bus only lane in the streetcar lane, and just like enforce no cars can go in it. And they could do that at a later date.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not going to do it further east where it really opens up wider and doesn't have the same businesses as stakeholders, it's just really hard to see where they would do it.
Yeah.
Well, this was specifically about the extension. And basically they have some choke points, like the bridge. It's like, there's, it would only be one lane. You could only have one lane of traffic. You've got some wider parts, And you've got some more narrow parts, and basically because of the choke points, they're just like, screw it, not gonna like try and force it.
Mhm. Is it just that they lack the political will for, it's just not politically feasible?
It's like a mix of political, technical, because like the roadway capacity at one lane would then not fit the current carrying capacity. And you basically in your model, you'd end up with like a really crappy level of service score. And so basically the assessment then would say this is going to cause this much backup and traffic. And so it's like, it's political in that that calculation rules the day. But it's technical that like, that's the standard operating procedure of this and pretty much every transportation agency.
Yeah.
So like, there's a political solution to that and a technical, but it's a technical problem. The political solution is to say you should override that technical finding
Right.
and say, screw it, we're fine with congestion.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's the thing, like, I almost want to say something, but would it do any good and would it do any harm at the same time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth ANC's echoing the point that the streetcar needs a dedicated lane
Mhm.
and that we support the project. Is it going to do anything to change the outcome? Probably not. I mean, this is a major project. It's funded. It's got like way bigger political forces. But like, you know, that's often the case with things that ANCs take positions on. So wouldn't hurt, I don't think.
That's good to know. I don't know if we're actually going to pass anything or if I'll introduce anything because the streetcar is just very fraught in 5D. It's either you weren't here when it came in and you kind of like it, or you were here when it was installed and you hate it because you just consider it a political fiasco. Yeah, which I mean, it is. It's a half-assed measure, so it doesn't work well for anybody. Streetcar sucks, to be honest. Until you get rid of the parking on the curb and give it its own lane, it's just going to be a slower bus.
Yeah, and until you make it longer. I mean, once this extension is built and like there are people who use it for a long, you know, more people using it for real transit, it's like, I think once this extension is built, there will be kind of a renewed appreciation for its potential. But yeah, this pilot part of it is just not enough to like build the momentum.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes in the future. I might kind of feel out how the other commissioners feel about this extension and then go from there. All right, so I remember in the agenda it said that Director Lott was coming to our February meeting, but I think that was left over from an old one. So the DC Council Performance Oversight hearing. I really do want to submit a letter on behalf of the ANC saying something. It's just a matter of, you know, what points to hit, because I know that there are going to be a lot of really smart people saying a lot of really smart things that make a lot of sense. You know, I guess, yeah.
So
What's special about 5D?
yeah, so I'm staffing that hearing. It's literally my first hearing since I've been in this job. There will be a lot of witnesses. I mean, I would, if you were going to comment something specific to 5D with specific, like a specific story of like, here's something we're trying to do, and here's how DDOT either has done it or hasn't, or way they could do it better. And so if there's like a couple of things that are like illustrative to show their performance in dealing with communities, but like also to highlight an actual project or like specific concerns. So, I mean, you could do something just like, you could do like a sense of, but like for Trinidad, right? Like we have like tons of speeding and like inadequate traffic calming all over the place. And like, we've had to do this piecemeal thing, and we like, to us, like that's not, DDOT has not done the job of like making our neighborhoods safe, and they should like be way more proactive in seeking safety solutions for communities or something like that. Something that like tells a little narrative that's, but with like based on the reality in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to add to the narrative, it's like we've got Benning, Bladensburg, and West Virginia that kind of either run through or border 5D. And as a result, 5D really kind of feels the impacts of it, whether it's getting out or people speeding through or other things like that.
It,
Can I ask a foundational question, which is just like the DC Council Performance Oversight? I'm not familiar with the process. Can I just have a little like?
So every year,
It's about
every committee of committees bring forward like each agency that they have jurisdiction over, and so what we did is we sent questions to DDOT, like 100 questions to get information on everything they're doing, structure, staff, all their programs, things that like were the council, like the chair is curious about to like learn. And so it's an actual like information gathering exercise. And then the hearing itself, there will be like a bunch of public witnesses saying what they think about DDOT. And then the director and the chair and the members will be able to ask questions. And so it's like, just like a basic oversight function that's built in every year.
a very public performance review of DDOT.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thanks.
The other thing, yeah. And so like the other thing would be to focus on like high priority big project. Like we really want attention on Bladensburg Road or something, and we want a really awesome new streetscape. Like, and basically try to elevate that project, because like there's a lot of those around town that like have studies and they're looking at for safety improvements, and just to like say it in front of the director and in front of the chair of the committee could be another thing to do.
If we're gonna name drop a couple high profile streets, I mean, is it kind of just making like a short list of like, here are some like strong points where we want attention and within 5D?
Yeah, and I would be even just like really specific, like Bladensburg has this corridor study about to happen. Like the community really wants a great project that prioritizes people, and like say about, you know, like we've got all this development happening and it's like just a car sewer, and we need to make it a place that's safe and comfortable and multimodal and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Stephen, are you thinking of just like doing some written testimony and sending it in, or?
I think just written. I don't have the time to take off work.
Yeah.
And then even because I work for the federal government, just taking off, even if either I take off time I don't have, or I try and squeeze in testimony during my workday, and that's ethically a little not great. Yeah, so it'll just be written. But I do want to get something in the record, because does written testimony legally carry as much weight as spoken testimony?
Yeah, it all goes on the record. There's like a hearing record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to know.
And yeah, but like, don't break don't work too hard to get something in. Like at the end of the day, like I might be the only person who reads it. Like if a written thing comes in after the hearing, like there's a small group of committee staff that are going to read it, and like it's good that like we have that. Speaking publicly and having the chair and the director hear it is like good,
Mhm.
So legally, they're the same, but like politically, maybe it's not as hefty.
Sure.
So like, I don't know, just don't try too hard is all I'm saying.
I'm in the record. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be sure in the middle of my written testimony, to put a little parenthetical. Hi, Andrew. Okay. Anybody have anything else about the oversight hearing? All right, cool. Now it's time for some good old legislation. Yeah, a lot of ANCs recently have been talking about the Metro for DC Amendment Act, the Safe Routes to School Act, and Walk Without Worry. They've been passing resolutions. Our ANC, the timing is good that we can still have our March meeting and pass a resolution before these bills go to hearing. Although I think, Andrew, the Metro for DC Amendment Act, did that already have a hearing?
The hearing is the 23rd of February. So,
Okay. So we won't be able to get it in before.
but the record closes March 9th. So what date is our next ANC meeting?
It is March 8th.
So you could get it in.
Yeah, we've done that plenty of times before where we have to get something in that night or the next day.
And you could do a single, if you have the votes for all of them, you could do a single resolution that covers multiple bills. That's common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. That's good to know. Okay, so first let's just talk about the Metro for DC Amendment Act. I know the top line is what, $100 for DC residents on their smart trip cards. It's obviously a good thing.
So there's two parts of the bill. So the subsidy is the big part. And so yeah, every DC resident would be eligible to sign up for essentially like a smart benefits subsidy of $100. If you don't use it, it doesn't like roll over and accumulate into $200. It basically, you just get topped up each month. So that's the huge expensive part of the bill. The second part is a transit equity fund that would be funded at least $10 million a year that would go towards improving public transit in transit equity focus areas as identified in Move DC. It could go to building bus only lanes, fixing or building better bus stops, like hard infrastructure on the ground. It could also go to, for a non-regional bus route, basically one that doesn't go into other jurisdictions, DC is allowed to fund additional service or even a whole new line. So like that we could give WMATA $5 million to run like twice as many buses on the D4 or whatever the number is. It could also go towards establishing a new circulator service. We'll probably add an amendment that would allow use for streetcar and streetcar priority. And the bill would get paid for by excess revenue, which is basically like money at the end of each year identified as above what was budgeted for, which essentially will be the most challenging part of the whole thing is the funding, because it's like going to cost like at least $120 million a year, probably. And so the council funding such a big ticket item by this like budgeting trick is up for debate whether it'll work. If there's not that much money available, it would basically fund lower income people in tiers to get their subsidies first. So like if there's only enough for like the first 50,000 DC residents, that's like based on an income tier. Yeah, and so that's set for a hearing on the 23rd. And just in case, does anyone need like legislative process? So like we do a hearing and like there's no vote on it, and then it would get scheduled for a markup at a future date, at which point we could like make changes in the committee and like even totally overhaul parts of the bill. Basically, as long as we discuss like the stuff at the hearing, it's like pretty okay to make substantive changes in the committee. So if there's like changes to bills that ANCs want to see, it's a good time to put stuff in. Like the feedback we've gotten on the other bills has already been super useful for like stuff we'll probably make, changes we'll probably make. So anyway, it's an awesome bill. It's very expensive. That's going to be the hard part.
Yes, well, it does seem like almost everything involving Metro is expensive.
Yeah. And the really cool thing is it's free transit service essentially for most DC residents, but instead of like a transit agency slash, spending all this money to do it and like having to maybe cut service in order to do it, this is like an infusion of cash from the DC government into the WMATA system to help them maintain or improve their service too. And so any additional riders that WMATA is getting out of this is like going into their recovery, which is like super important.
Yeah, seriously, that's huge. Yeah, we could just fund Metro Rail, but it stops at the DC border.
Yeah.
Just turns around. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts about that act? Okay. So let's move on to the new one, the Safe Routes. The next one, the Safe Routes to School Expansion Regulation Amendment Act of 2021. Is that the one that was introduced by Councilmember Henderson, or was that the Walk Without Worry?
So this is Janice Lewis George.
With George, yeah.
Henderson has a similar named bill that's actually about like, it's called Safe Passage, and it's more about like violence interrupters and stuff and safety from that kind of violence. Yeah, do you want to say what you know about it, or should I just like launch in? I mean, I've definitely like spent the most time looking at these bills of anyone on this call, I guarantee it. But
this is definitely in your wheelhouse, so feel free to.
So this bill, Safe Routes to School Expansion Regulation Amendment Act, would do a whole bunch of things to improve traffic safety around schools. Looking at the short summary, basically it like sets a school zone parameter where TDOT would have to then do a bunch of interventions like upgrading crossings, either with raised sidewalks or curb bump outs or signage or lights. It would permanently lower the speed limit in school zones as opposed to just like during school hours. It would basically make the school drop off, like parking restrictions, more stringent. It would require crossing guards. It would, I'm blanking on all the things it does. It would require an automatic traffic enforcement camera at one of the adjacent intersections. Yeah, those are the main things.
Yeah. Would it apply to only DCPS schools or what? Or
I believe as written, it applies to public schools, but I now need to confirm that.
Yeah.
Let me I can pull that up real quick on my like an annotated version where I like pull this stuff out. Okay, it is a they use the term educational institution, which is already defined in code. It means a school in the District of Columbia public school system, a public charter school, an independent school, a private school, a parochial school, or a private instructor, which that definition probably isn't the exact right fit, but that's what the bill says right now. One of the ANCs already suggested adding daycare, childcare facilities, rec centers, libraries, playgrounds, and elderly housing. I don't know if we would go that expansive, but I like where that thinking of like making sure we're being very inclusive.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that still sounds like it basically applies to every type of school in the district.
It's quite inclusive for schools, yeah. No turns on red would be required within school zones. high visibility crosswalks, in street crosswalk warning pylons, flashing pedestrian signs, always stop controls at every intersection within a quarter mile, traffic signals at all arterial intersections. Oh, and then an interesting thing, it would require DDOT to collect data on how people, students and staff actually get to school. So doing mode analysis.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then there's like a thing about identifying the schools in the most dangerous places, and then doing more stuff. So anyway, it's a good bill. We haven't like fully discussed what we want to do with it, but like it's going to move. Just a question of like what else we add to it or what changes we make. We're open to ideas if anyone wants to like dig through it. And I would, fully welcome support resolution.
Is there like a detailed summary somewhere? I know that's almost an oxymoron. Just
No, there's not. But the bill language is pretty like straightforward, like the English language. Yeah, it's not like that complicated to read.
It looks like the bill itself is only about 9 pages, double spaced.
Yeah, which is like mid-range, some bills are 1 paragraph.
Yeah, it looks like it kind of stands on its own. So there's not like a whole bunch of cross references that really confuse things.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to stew on that. And there's a lot to love, but I'm sure there's some ways it could be even better.
Yeah. So like for a resolution, simple support would be awesome. If making recommendations is like something the council has appetite, I mean, if the commission has an appetite for doing, that's cool. If Stephen, you after the fact look through and have ideas and you email them to me, that's honestly just as helpful. So
No, and I have a lot of confidence that the ANC will support resolutions in favor of this bill and the Without Worry one, and then I guess the Metro one as well.
They're pretty popular ideas. It's not like it avoids some of the, but yeah, there's not a lot to like argue about conceptually.
Yeah, I mean it's a bill for the children. It's hard to vote against the children.
Yeah.
is there a budgetary estimate for this? I'm just curious because I love all the studies and the added benefits, but
So we'll do a financial impact statement at markup. So for the hearing, we won't have any like numbers from like official numbers for these bills. The number I threw out for the for the Metro for DC bill was kind of like an informal number that WMATA told us, because we're like, we know it's such a big price tag and such a challenging budgeting item that it's like that has to be figured out earlier. With these ones, it's like, a few $1 million, right? It's like making stuff nicer around schools, some studies, or some data collection. It's not like giant. It's also not negligible.
It feels like a lot of like bike and pedestrian infrastructure is surprisingly cheap because we're usually prone to thinking about how much it costs to build and maintain highways, which are just magnitudes more expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Andrew. Anybody have any other thoughts, concerns? Okay, so let's just move on to the final bill, the Walk Without Worry Amendment Act of 2021. Andrew, I think you have the floor again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that's also scheduled for a hearing on the 14th, March 14th, same hearing as the schools one. That would require DDOT to develop standard designs in their design and engineering manual for raised crossings continuous sidewalks and raised intersections. And then it basically specifies a number of like situations where those need to be standard design features. And then as DDOT works through its paving schedule, when they encounter or a contractor encounters one of those locations, they have to install that infrastructure. And so it basically makes installing those things no longer like discretionary. They're just like how we build crosswalks.
Yeah.
It's an awesome bill, really great idea. This is from Brianna Nadeau's office, and like the main questions or the things I still kind of want to figure out is like the paving schedule being a fairly limited tool to implement it, being like if your street got paved last year, like you're not getting paved for a very long time, like a decade or something. I don't know, whatever it is. So having some other mechanisms to like identify these places and prioritize them, like if it's safety data or equity or proximity to school or whatever. So that's something I'll definitely look at. And then the like actual specific situations where it's required is like something I'm gonna talk to some engineers about, like, are these the right ones? And yeah, but standardizing raised crosswalks is a good idea.
And
And then it does give DDOT an out. So like if they don't want to do it somewhere, they can make the case and publish their reasoning. And like basically you have to do that in a bill like this that's so prescriptive, because there are going to be situations where it does not make sense for whatever reason, whether we agree with it or not. So.
mhm. Yeah, I remember hearing when this bill was first introduced, it's like you just mentioned, DDOT does have a way to not make the changes if they can properly explain so. And I think some people were concerned that maybe the burden for that was a little too low.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll look at.
like too low and too vague.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, yeah, I agree. It's a really good bill. So it's not limited to schools. It's just
It's everywhere.
yeah. That's great.
There's a lot of vague stuff in it. It was basically written like as a conversation starter, and like the getting really specific to like make sure it works as intended will be done in committee.
Cool. Good to know. What is a continuous sidewalk? I know everything else you said, but I hadn't heard that one before.
So it's basically where the like sidewalk material continues at the same level. It's like to signal kind of like you're changing. You'll see it in like trying to describe it. She has on her press release that they put out, they used the like Nocto diagrams. Let me see if I can pull it up. That one doesn't have the picture. Here we go. She has it in her tweets about it. So it basically like makes it seem like the sidewalk just continues flat.
Okay.
Almost like a visual priority that it's like pedestrian space rather than a drive
Yeah.
thing.
So whereas a raised crosswalk comes up to the curb, a continuous sidewalk, the curb lowers down to the road level.
No, they both stay up at the sidewalk level.
Oh, you know, yeah,
Um,
it's longer. It looks bigger, but
Let me see. There's a definition in the bill, which now I'm in trouble finding. Let's see. So continuous sidewalk means a crosswalk that is the same surface height as a sidewalk and similar in materials and appearance. Whereas a raised crosswalk means a crosswalk elevated to be at or near level with the sidewalk, in which pavement markings are retained and similar in appearance to a conventional high visibility swalk.
Mhm.
They're not that different.
But okay, so basically a continuous sidewalk gives the appearance of the sidewalk continuing on across the road.
Yeah, like you probably wouldn't use that to cross an arterial road, for example, but like if you're on like a main street, like a commercial corridor, let's say, that's higher capacity, and then you've got really low capacity local roads off to the side, like the continuous sidewalk would like extend along the whole route of it, and then so cars that are turning off would like be crossing over that to the local roads.
That's cool. Nice. Anybody else have anything to say about that bill?
No, it sounds good.
There's a lot of good stuff coming up here. Yeah. All right, so let's just move on to the last thing, the Noma Gallaudet third station entrance. I had no idea that this was in the pipeline until Tuesday's meeting when they had a presentation about it. I thought it was really interesting and I like it. The biggest pushback from a lot of people was the price tag. But I don't know, a lot of people were saying like, why put an entrance on 3rd Street when there's an entrance just around the corner and it's going to cost $50 million? What else can we do with that $50 million? I mean, it does sound like a lot to me, but again, it's a metro station entrance. It will serve a lot of people, you know. Yeah, it might save one person 5 minutes, but multiply that by hundreds or thousands of people every day using that. That's a lot of man hours, you know, saved. And it's going to last for, you know, as long as metro entrances last. So, I mean, I think it's a good investment. I think it's just kind of a hard sell. It's going to take, and I don't know that this presenter is the guy who's going to be able to properly do it. So he's probably going to need some commissioners to help do the lifting.
I mean, it's kind of like 50 million is a lot, but as I was thinking about it, it's not as if we could then take that 50 million and put it into projects that we want, right? Like it's going to go something else. My initial hesitation was because I first heard about it years ago, was it's going to be financed through a TIF, but then, was not. Ultimately, I think I would support it for the same reasons that you do. You mentioned, Stephen, as far as efficiencies. I'm not unsympathetic to Commissioner Guzman's criticism of why now, but
although to push back on that, like Noma is growing now, right? Like
sure,
the population that uses that station is now and in the future, right? Like that's a high growth area. So like you have adding capacity now makes sense rather than like before people lived there, right? I mean, and not saying nobody lived there, but like look at the data of like how many people lived within a half mile of that location.
Of course. I mean, the optics from that perspective though of like inequity is impossible to kind of, it's hard to overlook, but yes, I agree that the station is much, particularly since DOG moved over there, like there's a number of both offices and residential buildings that have come in.
Is the proposed entrance at like 3rd and Florida? Is it like close to Union Market area?
So yeah, it's on the south side of Florida along the tracks on 3rd. Have you seen the Press House building, that new building that just went up across from Planned Parenthood and Two Rivers?
Yeah, I know where the Planned Parenthood is. North or west?
West.
West. Oh,
That
okay.
big building that just went up. The entrance will be just west of that.
Okay.
And if you go over there, you can see where they left that opening that he described in the presentation. And it's like, would be pretty cool to like have that funnel into a metro station, like to give access to Union Market, like in a real meaningful way.
The driving traffic at Union Market.
Oh yeah.
Is amazing because it's not, I mean, it is such a cut through and
Yeah.
both like a mecca for you know, visitors, as well as a cut through between like Florida and New York Avenue.
Yeah.
So yeah, more metro people, that'd be great.
And like they were, Segal was like, I'd rather have an infill station at where RFK or where, you know, Oklahoma Ave. And it's like, yeah, but that's like hundreds of millions of dollars, like, and not ready to go, right? Like,
Right. There's no
that's
action
like,
yet.
that's 10 years minimum away.
I mean, it doesn't sound like that big a deal. Let's just take that 50 million and use it to build a Starbucks station.
Right. Yeah. To me, on the merits and the money. So I went and asked his description of like the money was in the budget and then it got taken away. That's kind of important for like why, you know, what's going on here. Basically, the council put it in. So the WMATA is under the council of or the committee of the whole. So that's Phil Mendelson's. So the fact that he put that money in is important. Basically, so the capital improvement plan is a 6-year budget that they do every year, and it's always for the next 6 years. And so it was like in 2020, they put it in starting for 2022. And so like they hadn't gotten to that part of the budget. And then by the next, basically before they finalized the budget, the mayor took it out in her next version. She didn't fund it the next year. Sorry, so it was in the budget in like 2020 or 2019. In 2020, they took it out. The mayor took it out, and then the council did not like try to put it back in again. And so it's a mayor council dynamic there.
Yeah, did she take it out of the budget because of COVID or just general reasons?
Wasn't a priority for her, you know, I don't know. She was looking for money. So it was 23 million. Here's 23 million I can use to balance out what all my other stuff, you know. And so the mayor will put out her budget proposal March 16th. And so, you know, if we get a resolution before that, that's good. If not, then like that would be informative on like what the next move would be. Like if she doesn't put it in, then it's like push the council to do it. Is the message.
Yeah, I don't think this will be ready for a resolution at our March meeting simply because that was the first presentation on Tuesday and 4 of our commissioners were out.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know more about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be April. Or yeah, just depending on how long the budget process is.
Yeah, so like committee markups happen. I should find out when that is. Ours for like DDOT is and DOEE is April 20th, I believe. So the committee of the whole will have one at some point on their agencies, which includes WMATA.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just keep an eye on that. Yeah, that cutout. I remember I was down at Union Market and waiting on the light to change, and I just saw it because it's a big building going up next to Press House, but there's just a 2-story cutout. I'm like, what is that? Like that looks so weird. Do they do it for acoustic reasons, for aesthetic reasons? And then I saw his presentation, and as soon as I saw the picture, I was like, oh, it's for a metro entrance. Okay. Yeah. And that was another interesting way I thought the presenter spun it. It's like, well, what's it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? And it's like, well, the DC government's going to pay for it, but also this developer is paying for it by not building where they could build within the cutout. I guess technically right. No. But oh yeah, Andrew, another thing. So I realized back then it was what, 23 million? Now they're asking for 50. Is that just because of the insane inflation in transit projects that cost every year?
Probably. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess everything, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just a supply chain.
And you ask for more than you need. That's like the first rule of asking for things.
Mhm. That's true. Anchor high. Mhm. Cool. Anyone have anything else? All right.
Nope. we're
Okay.
good.
Sorry, what was that called?
No, that's fine. That sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so that's really everything we had on the list for tonight. Appreciate that from everyone. Now it's just if there's anything on your mind you want to talk about, go for it.
The new like TSI process, I was curious, like Stephen, as a commissioner, how you think that's going, or is there any data or information on that? I've heard like, so like some commissions, I now have to staff like a Ward 3 ANC, which is crazy, by the way, for my job. I'll tell you all about it sometime when we're not meeting. They're really bizarre. It's the longest meetings ever. They're like upset because they think this process like takes away power from the ANC to like decide what's important. But like DDOT's saying, well, we're trying to like democratize like people's ability to like just report stuff and then we'll go fix it. And I think I agree with that. Anyway, they've got like the dashboard going. I like when they presented at our meeting about the new process, I like just spent the time just doing TSIs and just submitted like 3 or 4. So anyway, I'll track how that goes. I think like we talked about kind of like a comprehensive, making a list of all the places, like that would take some work, more capacity. Alternatively, like each of us could just like every month try to like submit a couple of things that we see going on. If we want to do, being realistic about like if someone's going to organize that or not.
I think we'll just see for now. I think if people just keep their eyes open when they're walking around, yeah, we could do a lot as long as everyone's just paying attention and checking out things. And I know for me, the biggest, like, because I have no problem putting in a 311 request or a TSI request. The biggest barrier is just thinking like, is this actually going to make a difference? Is it actually worth my time? But if you never ask, it's never going to get done. You know? So I think it's just something else to keep in mind. Yeah. I can think of a couple around me off the top of my head. Yeah, it's a good idea. So let's just keep our eyes open and do it and sort of ad hoc for now and track it and see how it goes. If it seems promising, we can organize it into a more formal thing. Anybody else?
No, that works. I mean, I guess my only annoyance is the question I asked at maybe it's last month's ANC, where if you don't submit the request and you didn't receive it, like there's still no way, at least from what I've seen, to see closed requests from DDOT. So I mean, it's not the biggest barrier, but
so there is a closed request tab on the dashboard now. I'm just like clicking on some of them to see how they closed it out. I mean, most of them are saying they did stuff. So actually, I'm wondering if maybe they are only posting ones where they took action.
Interesting. Well, at least that's a step in the right direction, because when I last looked in like December, it was not there. Maybe January.
So yeah, here's the dashboard. Anyone wants to look, and you can filter it by ANC and
but you're right. It might, I don't know, it doesn't seem super comprehensive in that maybe it's only if they actually decided it was worth acting on.
For the closed ones,
Yeah.
that might be, because I'm not seeing any like closed without action.
Yeah.
So you'd have to. They probably like closed the 311 ticket. Like that's what's really like the 311 process. They'll like put closed, which doesn't actually mean the issue's resolved. It means it's like no longer a 311 thing. It's like an agency's doing something, but it's closed, or you know.
Mhm. And even for the ones that are closed, they only show what they did. They don't show what was requested.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at 2 requests I put in for always stop and was closed with traffic does not cross, does not stop signs.
Which the location on that one?
2 of them. It was Penn and Queen, and then Holbrook and Montello, or Queen and Montello.
So like the Penn and Queen one is that it says was closed on 12/7/21
Yep.
with signage markings other.
Yeah.
So did they do anything?
Queen Street has the right of way, so the stop signs are on Penn Street, and they on the stop signs on Penn Street just put a sign that says cross traffic does not stop.
So they did something. So they put yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then also there are some, I know I put in some requests for speed humps that were closed because they didn't meet the warrants, and those are not on here. Yeah, I want to see what it is.
Were those, it also kind of, so when they changed the process, they like kind of like started from scratch in some ways, like with the way what they're counting and reporting in different places. So depending on when you did that. But yeah, if they closed it and didn't do anything, it doesn't look like it's showing up.
Right. All right, well, it's good to know. I mean, it's still good that they're showing some closed items at all.
We might be able to get them to show more of the closed stuff. This was helpful for me actually to like be specific about what they're not putting on there.
Yeah,
It's crazy. I like just started this job, and I'm like getting meetings with Director Lott like on the regular now.
Well, look at you.
So we can tell him what to do. I don't know if he'll listen to me. It's like, you're some new guy. I don't care.
That's worth a shot.
But I'm in the Zoom room.
Look, even if you're not necessarily powerful, you're at least next to power.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have any other things they want to talk about?
Nope.
Cool. All right, well, it looks like we're going to end right at 9 o'clock. I took some notes in the Word doc version of the agenda. Feel free to add whatever you want. In the meantime, I will start working on resolutions for the 3 bills, and I'll circulate those for feedback before I send it to the ANC, to the other commissioners for their feedback. So just keep an eye out for that over the next couple of weeks.
If you need short blurbs for the bills, like the hearing notices, like very concise. And then the other, I don't know if you've seen the other resolutions. If you want to see any other ones, I have them all. Just
Okay,
if you need language, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Something to work from.
Yeah.
That'd be really big help.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
All right.
With that, everyone have a good night. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you all next month.
See ya.
Thank you. You too.